and it is second voice session is low carbon mobility. I kindly request the dignitaries to be seated on the dais, please. We all for a second voice session on low carbon mobility. And the moderator for this session is Satya and Seshadri, IIT Madras, and the other peoples are Venkatesh Modi, Blume Ventures, Vinod Shankar, Java Capital, Alok, Chauhan, Micelio Mobility, and startup side Jacob, Thekkekara, Sugrah Mobility, Nilesh Bajaj, Vayve Mobility, Vilash Tank, Aventose Energy, and the experts, the dice is yours.
Thank you. Welcome to the last session before the last session. So we have one more session where we launch the report on commercial buildings. So I take this opportunity to welcome you all onto the dais. Thank you very much. It's an important segment. As we all know, transportation is likely to consume, or it's still continuing to emit significant amount of CO2, and there's a lot of push on electrification. But we also see the reports, though in a percentage terms, recently there was a report that said the EV sales in India has increased by some 50% whereas the petrol vehicle or the traditional IC engine sales was only increasing by 4 or 5%. But if you really put that in perspective, it's on a very different base. You're talking about a few thousand increasing by 50% versus about 500,000 increasing by a few percentage. So on a gross number value, it's like saying India's, GHG emission per capita is only 103rd, whereas we are actually number 3. So it's same kind of story here. And I do understand that there is a lot of investment interest and technology developers, a lot of companies. It's like the early days of the automobile revolution where there were so many car companies. Eventually it came down to a few that we know right now. And what's happening in this entire space. So I would probably request in this same order to introduce yourself, just your name, what's your position on this topic, and where do you see this, maybe about 5 minutes, so that then we can come back to the second round.
Hello everyone, I'm Alok out of Micelio Fund, which is the Clean Mobility Fund for Accelerar Ventures. We are a seed, pre-seed focused fund investing in clean mobility. Probably one of the earliest funds set up focusing specifically on this space, and one of the largest seed portfolios as well, focused specifically on clean mobility. We're investing anywhere up to 750K in a particular company as a first check, and today have a portfolio of around 9 companies.
So broadly, there are 2 questions, right? For the investors out here, why are you picking up this sector, given what the status of this sector and what do you see as the future? And for the startups, what has been the impact of investment? Has it been sufficient enough to scale, or what do you like to see more that happens?
As an investor, I think one was, of course, we saw great promise in this sector when the fund was set up by our LPs in 2019. And of course, I became part of Micelio very recently, but have been tracking this space since 2019 as well. One is, of course, the promise and the opportunity size itself. But on top of that, what we've seen is that this is transformational in many ways, more than one, and spans beyond mobility as well. And the broader change that it can bring about in the overall impact is outsized and is not limited to clean mobility alone. And that brings us as one of the key pieces of this puzzle around GHG emissions to be solved. And therefore, this has brought us to a great interest into this space, and largely following this theme around our investing thesis as well.
Thank you.
This is Vinod here from Java Capital. Java Capital is a pre-seed stage fund investing in deep tech, IP creation, and climate and sustainability companies. Given that we're talking about mobility, we've invested in E-Plane. I'm sure a lot of you know coming out of here. which is an electric flying taxi. Obviously, you know that aircrafts and they have a significant amount of carbon emissions that add up from the mobility space. I think that's an idea, that we felt, even though it's challenging and it takes time, and I think it's something that, we could potentially do, for example. We've also invested in another company called Okilo Aerospace in the mobility space, which is building a solar electric hybrid version of a longer endurance drone, which can stay much longer in the sky, or let's say it acts on something that's in between a satellite and a typical drone at a lower height. So I think we've explored the space to a large extent. And also, right, your other question on why would we invest, right? I think fundamentally we believe in the long run, right, all of us will have to move to low carbon options, and it's like right and staring in your face. And since it's staring in your face, we expect policy changes, conducive changes, and that means it leads to opportunities. And I think I'm also being like opportunistic here, right? I'm not just being some altruistic way of saying, I just want to do this for the climate from Java's end, right? I think we are being clearly optimistic and opportunistic at the same time. And that I see as a trend that we would continue to do that. And we're very open about looking at all sorts of mobility angles where climate and IP creation is really possible. And that's like really the core focus. And not just, we wouldn't invest in one more OEM, for example. That's something that we wouldn't do. But just last to add, right, I think tech is one portion of the problem. I think we also believe fundamentally behavior when it comes to mobility. Like you have startups like One Step Change. So I think we look at both the aspects to see, what would it mean for low carbon mobility. We're just joking when we're on the backstage, right? I go to a Darshini just like 100 meters rather than going to what Venkatesh goes like. For him it's 100 meters and for me that's like 500 meters. So inherently we are built to do that, to eventually optimize. I think we will look for optimizations, and that's where I think there's a massive opportunity for us to work here.
Thank you, Vinod. I do understand, yes, we invest because there has to be an opportunity. We do see the gold at the end of the, or pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So I would like to hear from you, Venkatesh, on what you see.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks everyone, glad to be here. I'll just start off with a little introduction about Blume. So Blume started 12 years ago by Karthik and Sanjay. Back then it was a 100 crore fund. Currently we have $600 million of AUM. We are a generalist fund. We invest across all sectors, typically seed, pre-series A. Our sweet spot is $1 to $3 million. Particularly in the EV space, we have invested into 5 EV companies: Yulu, Euler Motors, Battery Smart, Electric Pay, and Vecmocon. And our first investment was, I think, into Euler back in 2017. Clearly, we have been, we really love electric vehicles, and we just keep investing into one company or another all the time. And that is mostly one of the reasons why we actually, it is super interesting for us, is because of policies, and policies which have been in favor, right? I think everyone here may be aware of PLG, which SaaS companies talk about. I think there is a PLG on the EV side as well. It's policy-led growth. And that has been probably one of the major reasons why electric vehicles have had the kind of adoption they have in the market right now. And obviously, India is a very price-sensitive market. Even today, whenever we go out, we are very careful about where we spend and whether a shopkeeper has given us a 2 rupee coin instead of a 1 rupee coin whenever we buy something as well. And from that perspective, people are very conscious about money. And electric vehicles really break even very fast, and what that means is you're saving a lot of money on fuel if you are using electric vehicle. And that's why I think inherently India is also adopting a lot of electric vehicles and commercial first over passengers, because it really breaks even in 2-3 years. The TCO is positive. So those are, I think, primarily the 2 reasons why we have continued to find this sector super exciting, and it really truly works for India.
Thank you very much, Venkatesh. So the question really comes, we'll come back to you later, as to you continue to see a lot more opportunities to invest in this space, and what would you like to see happen so that most of your early bets will start to pay off? Maybe some companies will scale way beyond what we expect, but just to understand the space, how is it evolving? You see a lot more company. And also, in keeping with the theme of the session, low carbon mobility, do all of you see this as a low carbon mobility solution? We'll park that question, we'll come back to that later. So as we go to the next round, so I'd like to hear from you.
Hello, I am Jacob Thekkekara, co-founder of Sugrah Mobility. Sugrah Mobility focuses on sustainable mobility solution, and we have started our journey with pedal-assisted three-wheeler. As you all know, India and Southeast Asia uses the cycle rickshaw the most in huge numbers. Even in Europe now, you can see as part of decarbonization, pedal-assist vehicles are coming back onto the roads. So what we have done is, we have given a solution to the three-wheeler, the tricycle, by mounting a solar panel and the battery pack along with the motor and the drivetrain component. And the end result is we are able to get a vehicle that can deliver around 100 kilometers of range on a single day, which is charged only from the sun. Only from the sun. We have never connected our vehicle to the grid, and it has given more than 1,000 kilometers over 3 months and 4 months. So that is absolute zero carbon mobility for use cases. Okay, we have a slide here. So these are the use cases that are very common, prevalent in India as well as Southeast Asia. And our solution is a solar-powered tricycle, which is our starting point, which can be a quadricycle down the lane. So, thank you. The thing is, with the advent of EV, what we can notice is the downtime for making vehicles have reduced drastically. And that gives us an opportunity to downsize the vehicle or right-size the vehicle. Say like you have a certain application wherein which you want to have a garbage collection. If there was no EV, you would have gone ahead with a three-wheeler which is used for 1 ton or a half ton capacity. Or we would have gone with a Tata Ace which is capable of 1 ton. But with the advent of EV, you are able to design a vehicle which can take around 250 kilos and still be very efficient, much more efficient than other options. So that is one of the reasons why we are in this particular space. This is our starting point, but things are looking very good.
Thank you, Jacob. So I'd like to invite your thoughts.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, I am Nilesh Bajaj. I am co-founder of Vayve Mobility. So we are an automotive OEM. We are building small electric cars for city use. So this is our first product. It's a 2-seater personal mobility solution for everyday commute. We got the very good brief for this session that we have to tell why we are doing this. So I'll keep true to that. So I'll start from micro and go to macro. So personally, I've stayed in Mumbai for 10 years, very close to a very infamous place called Sakinaka. So home to office was 1 kilometer, could take anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes in my car. So got tired of that. We definitely knew there could be something better possible to be done. Coming a little bit about that, as an entrepreneur, why I am building small electric cars today, because we love to solve problems. And the problem we saw is that there are gaps in the ecosystem which the traditional players are not addressing. So there are going electric just does not mean taking a current petrol or diesel vehicle and replacing the engine and putting a battery pack. There are many more unconventional and new form factors are possible, such as micro mobility, and people are not doing that. So that is something very important. So I'll just give you a small example. I just read an article yesterday that a very famous automaker is testing a mild hybrid system for their best-selling SUV in the market, which increases its efficiency by 10%. So honestly, I don't think that is the future. It's like very, very stopgapish solution. And the third and a little philosophical part is, as a human and as a citizen of the world, we have to become conscious of our consumptions. So it is not about bigger cars, it is not about more things now. We have to, so I believe you must have heard of the concept of the problem with the common goods, that people like to enjoy the common things such as roads, public infrastructure, and our environment is one of them, which we share with all the people in the world. And we have to become conscious, and even right sizing your vehicle is the right step towards doing that. So this is my, and I think our reason for building small mobility solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nilesh. I do like your car form factor. I hope to see that in the road soon. One of the questions that I also asked, maybe you can touch upon in the next round, is how has investment helped you, and are there sufficient investment coming into these sectors to really achieve the dreams that you're talking about? But before we get to that question, I would like to invite Vilas to share your thoughts.
Thanks. I'm Vilas Tank. I'm from Aventose Energy. And before I start, I would like to introduce our company and also share how we are trying to have an impact at scale. So we are Aventose Energy based out of Chennai. We are involved in design, development, manufacture and sale of electric two-wheelers to begin with, followed by three-wheelers in future. And the platform which you see, so we are the first company in India to develop scooter and motorcycle platform simultaneously from scratch. These are the four two-wheelers which we will be launching in next few years. 80% of the components used in these vehicles are common. So that gives us a lot of advantage in volume, scale, cost reduction, and also allows us to launch vehicles one after another very quickly. Can we move to the next slide, please? So this is our first maiden product, which will be launched. We can start sale in January 2024. This is already ARAI certified with latest 156 phase 2 battery standard. We have various variants to meet various B2C and B2B markets. Next slide, please. This is the motorcycle which will be launched will start sale in April. This one is more for the form factor. The previous vehicle was for function. Next slide, please. So in order to have high adoption, we are also trying to target the mass market, which is basically two-wheeler 110 to 125 cc segment, which is basically 85% of Indian two-wheeler market. So between the four variants, that's what we are trying to target. The first scooter is more of a replacement, or it targets 110 cc motorcycle. Even though it's a scooter, but it will target the motorcycle segment, similar to Splendor 110 cc. The scooter S125 will target the Activa kind of market. M125 will target Pulsar 125 kind of market, and M150 will be Pulsar 150. Next slide, please. So like I said in the previous slide, we are trying to target mass market, which is 85% of the market. So what we are trying to, from day one, our goal was to have high adoption, and we are trying to do that by trying to make our products as close to the petrol vehicles as possible when it comes to reliability, durability, and performance. So these are the various USPs. I won't go into all of them. One of the question which was asked in the beginning was, have we seen any issues with the funding recently? So I will come to that, but before that, I would like to say there are a lot of issues being faced by startup OEMs in the recent times. Our product solves all those issues, not just in the design part, but also in manufacturing and sales scalability. A lot of innovation has gone not just in design, but also in manufacturing and scalability. So I think one of the question was, after introduction, like, can we comment on what is the investment scenario currently for startup OEMs? We have been very lucky, as funding has mostly come to us through friends and family, but yes, the institutional funding has seen a bit of a slowdown after the battery issues, the fires, the safety, and also the localization, and then FAME penalties. But what I feel, this is mostly because the industry is still learning. I feel if the institutions see some good product in the market, I think there definitely will be funding available for that.
Sure. Thank you very much, Vilas. Now I'd like to go to the other challenges that I would like some answers from you. I'll start with Venkatesh. You said you have a fairly good portfolio of EV companies. With so many of these, are you spreading your bets on many companies to see at least some of them will become successful, which means you are diluting the amount of investment and focus that you could have done on one or two big bets and make them really scale? Is this a sign of lack of confidence, or are you really looking at technology differentiation so that you have to bet so many of them?
Right. So all the 5 companies that we have invested in are across the value chain. Euler Motors is a 3-wheeler commercial vehicle manufacturer, and the thesis behind that was that right now, at least in the country, the TCO is going to be positive for a 3-wheeler commercial vehicle. Nobody was working on a 4-wheeler. Cracking a 3-wheeler was very tough, and that's why, and there was lots of technical product modes also that the company had built, and that's why we chose to back them. Second, I think we invested in Yulu, which is a last mile mobility company. The founders had already built India's first unicorn, and they were starting up again, so it was more like a no-brainer for us to back them, and they have been doing well as well. The third company that we backed was Battery Smart. So what we realized was Battery Smart is in the battery swapping space. Again, that is like a subsector of charging. And what we realized was the kind of problem that they were solving was very niche. The solution already had a product market fit. They were allowing last mile e-rickshaws, and if any of you have been to Delhi, you will see that there are lots of e-rickshaws in the last mile mobility, especially around metros. They help you get transported to the closest location. They were replacing those lead acid batteries with lithium-ion batteries. And once you do that, they were able to basically increase their runtime on the road, which meant that what initially if they were, let's say, clocking in close to 8 hours or something of runtime on the road, with a swapping solution, they were able to double this, and they could ride as long as they wanted to. And what that meant was they could double their earnings as well. So that was the major reason why I invested into Battery Smart, and then we invested into Electric Pay, which is again in the charging space, but it is in the plug-in charging space. So obviously there is a question about plug-in charging and swapping. Our thesis and our conviction is that in an end state, both are going to be equally mature, let's say parallels of charging, and that is because every segment has a different use case. Swapping is not applicable for trucks or cars because you cannot lift those batteries. And plug-in charging is also not going to work. Slow plug-in charging is not going to work for cars. So in that case, you will need like a fast charger. So these are some of the larger reasons why we invested into Electric Pay, which actually solves for two-wheelers, and two-wheelers are like the more than 80% of the vehicles on the road, and they cannot actually have a swapping play. Most of them cannot unless and until, let's say, you're investing into like a swappable battery kind of solution itself. In that case, you may be compromising on some of the battery performance because some of the fixtures are not there. And then Vecmocon is the last company we invested in, and they actually manufacture components. So they are building like an intelligent platform to allow all the OEMs on the two-wheeler side and the three-wheeler side to come up with good components and build like a good vehicle. So in a lot of ways, we have studied the market, and that has allowed us to basically invest into the different value chain. And typically, as an investor, we are a seed to pre-series A kind of an investor, which means that even though we may have the corpus to actually lead, let's say, a Series A or a Series B kind of a round in our company, we will come in at a seed or a pre-series A only, and we will help the company raise external money from other investors and participate in that, exercise a pro rata then. So that is typically how VCs firms also pick their niche on where they want to invest in.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Venkatesh. To Vinod, you also alluded to IP in this space that you focus on. Can you share some light on what do you see as IP in this space? A lot of times when I see this market and when I see a lot of startups, it's a combination of existing platforms, and mostly it's in some intelligent combination. Are there any core IPs that is being generated?
I think we fundamentally look for IPs, and that's like the core thing to look for when we invest, right? So if you take E-Plane, for example, right, they're building differential engines because nobody has built it, and globally also it's like everybody is still in the test phase. That means it's not been done before. It means you'll have to develop, even though building an aircraft is not new, but how do you make sure electric propulsion works? How do you balance things? All that comes into play. So that creates like a good barrier for any new company to come into play. And we've seen that happening in that space, right? Even in the other company, the Oculo Aerospace that we're talking about, there have been long endurance drones, but nothing, which was working on a solar hybrid electric version. So there are enough complications that arises, if you put two different power sources, storage, how much to store, how do you manage the power, and how do you navigate further. All these challenges becomes new, and that's end up, creating potential new IPs for us. I think we've been very consistently clear that, we wouldn't want to invest in another OEM. I think that doesn't make sense for us. On another new form factor, at least that doesn't make sense for us. We look for IPs, and if there is really some strong IPs, that's where we jump in and, really feel that, that's a long game that we really want to play and sit on it, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Vinod. So we've heard from Venkatesh where they are looking at the entire value chain, and Vinod's focusing on IP-driven companies. Any thoughts from you on Alok on what kind of investment theses does Micelio Mobility follow, which helps these kind of startups?
Sure. So we have investments with Blume and Java both, and they've spoken about some of those. Broadly, our thesis has been to invest in enablers of the core value chain of clean mobility, and we've followed that through and through with our investments. We've made investments in, let's say, electric pay recently with Java, and Urja, which is into the battery simulation space. We've also are invested in E-plane with them. So quite similar theses, but also to say we don't focus only on the core value chain, but more so on the enablers of the value chain, B2B focused businesses. The other investments that we made includes Sheru, which is a swapping first company, but also working on solutions, which we were talking on the previous panel around peak shaving and helping that with distributed batteries. We are also invested in a company which is innovating on the cell design front, which essentially takes away a lot of problems that are inherent with lithium-ion cells around thermal runaways and lithium plating, etc., which also will eventually help into fast charging and lower life degradation. So, as I said, IP-driven, of course, driven by enablers of the ecosystem, moats around businesses that can have outsized outcomes. So that's broadly been our thesis.
Thank you very much, Alok. So now I would like to maybe come back to you, Jacob, on you heard from them on the kind of investment theses that they bring in, and I'm sure many in the investment community are likely to have some such similar theses. Where do you see as your challenges and opportunities as you're building? Maybe you can share if you have raised funding, how it has helped, and going forward, are there anything that you would like to see that will help you further?
Thank you. So this is my second startup. So in my first startup, I did raise funds. It was in similar field, but then I exited, and then whatever exit I got is bootstrapped into the second startup. So Sugrah per se didn't have to raise funds so far, but we are at a stage where we need to scale. But from the industry standpoint, I would be very ungrateful to say that EV is facing difficulty in raising funds. Because even when everybody was talking about a funding window, EV was the first sector I think that was doing better compared to the other sectors. So given the success stories that we are seeing with Ather on the stage before, Ola and other companies, and the success stories that are yet to come, I think raising funds and utilizing funds for EV has not been a problem. Personally, I feel so. As you had pointed out earlier, a lot of IC engine vehicles were there, but only very few of them stuck. The same case will apply with EV, because there have been a lot of competition from people who assemble kits and make vehicles. Slowly, the actual vehicle manufacturers will stand out, because as time progresses, the durability would come to fore, because even because of EV, you can make vehicles quicker compared to IC engines. The core fundamentals haven't changed. The vehicle dynamics, the brakes, the steering, those part has to be absolutely spot on. Your chassis, your suspension, your brakes. If you fail there, the product will fail. So I strongly feel more than the fundraise, it is about creating the right team once you get the fund, to get the right people on board so that you can make the right product for the customer. So that is the biggest challenge that I think is there with every product. And with EV, you need to, as a co-founder, you need to solve that problem.
Oh, that's a challenge with not just every product, every lab, every whatever person who needs to hire another person to do work, that's a problem. But I would like to hear from Nilesh. You picked up the four-wheeler space.
Yeah.
And four-wheeler space has been notoriously difficult. And even when we are talking, we are saying we will do two-wheelers, 80% of the transport on the road, and then maybe three-wheelers for commercial applications. Four-wheelers has been there, Chet, Maini, the original Reva, and then Mahindra took it up, and then it's not there anymore. So how do you see this helping, of course, your passion? I like the vehicle, but how do we see this scaling?
Right. So, people call it hard tech. I would say it's hard tech, but harder business. Because building a four-wheeler personal mobility company is a multifaceted challenge. It's not just about tech, it's about design, it's about creating a brand, and it's about delivering a very reliable and very refined product continuously to the customer. So something what we don't realize is that we are used to a very high level of refinement in the automobiles that we drive every day. Even a 5 lakh rupee entry level car is extremely refined when we talk about the finish, the touch feel, the NVH levels. You know, the first car that went into mass production was more than a century ago. So the automakers have been refining this architecture since that time. And now today we are coming with a new powertrain, but we have to meet the standards and beat the standards that they have set in the last century. So it is very important from the story that we are trying to give to the customer. Now what it translates to is related to funding. Why would an investor invest into such a business where the success does not depend on one factor or one technology mode, but it depends on many things. Your team, your capability to design, manufacture, as well as sell properly. So the problem is challenging. We cannot sell a single vehicle before we have completely tested, validated, homologated. So basically we have to do the complete process before we can bring even one vehicle to the road or give it to even a single reporter or automotive journalist, because the negative feedback can kill us. So, and to do that, I need X amount of money. So it's a chicken and egg problem. But if you see the upside, how many passenger mobility companies have been there since last 50 years in India? And you can count on the fingers that practically there are none. So the upside is great. So one thing I would like to add is EVA is built in India for India first, but it is built for a global market. So now when you talk about the TAM for India and the TAM for global, because this is built for EU standards, so then you see the upside. So it's like a bigger risk and bigger return, which I believe there are certain investors who would be willing to take that. So keeping the fingers crossed and moving ahead one day at a time.
Okay. So before I open up the session for general questions, I would like any of you maybe take a one-line answer saying, while all of what we talk about, including from investments, from vehicle builders, is what we do as the conventional current way of transportation. Finally, transportation is taking me from point A to point B. In the end, I don't care. I get there in the most comfortable, the shortest time frame, and the cheapest way. Are you seeing some kind of disruptive technologies or some kind of futuristic ideas that could come and make all of this irrelevant? You probably had some experiences here in the Research Park where we did a summer project with a large number of college students on high throughput urban transportation in the most efficient way possible. Futuristic concepts such as that could potentially make what we are currently trying to work on irrelevant, except for maybe for last mile. So how do you as an investor see that, and how do you as a OEM who is developing, maybe one line from you and one line from you.
So, yeah.
See, I think whenever you talk about a huge throughput transportation solution, whatever vehicles you saw here actually complements that. So when we are all last mile mobility solution, so I think we will work in harmony with such a throughput solution, say like a mass transport. From the last part may be covered by the last mobility solution, last mile mobility solution. That's what I feel.
No, I think on low carbon mobility, if you really think right, I don't think so we need to have something high throughput. For example, basic infrastructure and policy itself will solve a lot of, at least low carbon mobility is my view. I mean, we don't have footpaths to walk. In a way, right? I'm just saying, I'm just giving a flip side view of that. But is it a breakthrough technology? No, I think it's not breakthrough. See, high-speed rail, for example, could help, to short distance between a Bangalore and a Chennai. You don't need a flight, technically, right? If you could do that at like 200 kilometers, you can do that in 1.5 hours. I think that's more than sufficient. I think that's really going to be helpful if we can get really indigenized or Indian versions of, high-speed Vande Bharats, if you wish. That's one. But I think basic infrastructure, like how do you access a metro station today? If it's within 500 meters, can we walk? That is like behavior. Can we incentivize behavior? I mean, really at low carbon mobility, I'm talking slightly off, not edge technologies. Simpler solutions exist, but I think we don't think about it seriously, which is all behavior related, unfortunately. Yeah.
Integrative design challenges, it always exists. So maybe we have time for a couple of questions. Anybody else would like to ask?
Good evening, sir. I'm an aircraft systems engineer, so mobility, the air mobility is the one which inspires me, and kind of the drone-related transformation is really a greatest opportunity that we have at this point of time. So my specific question is around air mobility, especially the e-plane. I know. Is it better now? Okay. So my question is specific to the air mobility. What is the time or what is the horizon that we are looking at for this air mobility to come in? Is it in the short term, 5-year, 10-year? Because 5 years is the average span for a for a metro rail rollout. So what is the horizon that you are looking at this point of time?
No, I think, just looking at what that's happening with our portfolio company itself, right? I think we can think of a 5-year or lesser time frame. I think it's already been like 4 years. And also why I'm saying that, with a good amount of confidence is across the globe, right? There have been other players who've gone to test stages. FAA approvals are in progress. Not just one or two. We would see in a bunch of them, which are already at advanced stages. These are all vertical takeoff landing vehicles, electric propulsion vehicles. So I think it's not too far away, is my view. 5 years, surely, I think, you will see it much earlier in maybe Europe and the American continent. And I think, we're not too far away from that, I think.
Hello, thank you for a very interesting session. I have a simple question. Why is electric car conversion not a good solution? I see cars to just converting it to an electric, cheap and good solution.
Yeah, some of you can take it. Yeah.
So, fundamentally, when we are designing a car, it starts from the basic packaging of the powertrain and the basic chassis design and all. And that is very, very different for a IC engine because of the way the masses are located, the temperatures that an engine operate at, and the certain major components that are needed, is very different from the way I would package a electric vehicle, which is mostly battery packs. And the kind of a standard that has become is a skateboard design, where you have battery throughout the chassis and then powertrains the motors very close to the wheel. So the fundamental packaging decides the way a car is designed. I'm not saying that it is not possible. You are seeing conventional automakers doing that with their existing models. It is possible, but it is inefficient. And it is not cost effective, because the powertrain is one of the most expensive part, including the battery. So the kind of saving you would expect, you will not get, and the kind of reliability you would expect, you will not get in a retrofit kind of a solution. People are doing it, but the experience or the ownership experience will be far diluted as compared to if you have a very nicely designed ground up, or a born EV is what we call platform. The experience would be much better, efficiencies would be much higher, reliabilities would be much higher. So that's why everybody, I think, who is in this industry have tried it and realized that no, it's not really an efficient way of building a vehicle for. And again, when you bring a vehicle on road, it is for 10 to 15 years minimum. So that is the minimum life cycle guarantee you have to give.
I'd like to just add on to that point. See, from startup point of view, it doesn't make business sense, because we are all looking to scale up the business. So like if you are going to retrofit a vehicle, you will not be able to sell around 2,000 vehicle a month, or say 100 vehicles a shift, because you are taking in an old used vehicle that has to be removed, it has to be cleaned, parts has to be changed. So most probably you will end up working 1 or 2 days on one particular vehicle. So that is it's not a viable business to invest in. So from startup point of view, I think it will not make a business sense.
Sure. So we have one last question here.
Yeah, this is for the investors. I keep asking because most of them, we are in the same boat in the car and OEM manufacturing. I see a lot of investors pumping money into the low-hanging fruits, which is basically the battery manufacturers or motors and other guys. And again, on something that is going to be taking 5 years, 7 years, like the E-plane and others. But when it comes to OEM manufacturers who are getting into the same space, make in India, but they are not able to get funding as such that easily, because everyone says that we don't understand the OEM market. But everyone is funded companies that have to supply to us and who are not able to manufacture. They are also startups. I have battery tech companies, I have motor tech companies, and coming and saying, can you take product from us? But I don't have money to take it from them, because I have to put a production facility. So how does that happen? And India government is not as supportive as abroad as well.
Thanks for that question. Actually, that is a big pain point. There are lots and lots of OEMs out there in the market, especially on the two-wheeler front. What typically happens is you need to understand that venture capital is just one small portion of a source of financing for any particular company in the world, right? Our LPs are basically endowment funds and large family offices who basically expect, and this is like a high risk, high return kind of a business, and they allocate only like maybe 2 or 3% of their capital into VC firms. So the kind of pressure VC firms are under to return the money is very high. So when it comes to, let's say, investing into an OEM kind of a business, if it is going to be only about manufacturing and repeating it, and if there is very little differentiation that a particular company has compared to any other that already exists or what may come out in the future, it is very tough for VCs also to justify making an investment. I'll just give you an example. Like, we invested into Euler Motors. The reason why we invested into Euler Motors, they are a OEM. They are a three-wheeler OEM. They have a very big factory in Palwal in outskirts of Delhi NCR. The reason why we chose to, and we knew that this was going to come, the reason why we invested into them was because they were building some tech modes. They were building a product which did not exist in the market, and we believe that they would disrupt the market. And at that point in time, when you truly have built something which is so different, money will find its way to you. So that is how VCs also think that, I would say that don't look at it from that perspective of why a VC is not funding us. Look at it at what are the other sources of financing where you can probably tap into. It could be banks, it could be DFIs, it could be debts, NBFCs, and VC is just a very small, very small portion of the capital pool available. It's extremely glorified, and that's why you see a lot of buzz around it. I would say look outside as well, and in a lot of ways you will find answers. Maybe Vinod can add.
Sure, I think we are almost out of time. I thank you very much all for being here, sharing your thoughts very openly. It's been a great session for me to also understand. We'll put up a hand thanking you very much. It's a challenging sector, but great opportunity. Look forward to seeing all your products in the market very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.